Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. President Trump campaigned on two distinct sets of promises. There was a group of people he was going to help and a group of people he was going to hurt. And by and large, he has kept the latter set of promises. We see it every day. He has relentlessly demonized and insulted immigrants, Hispanics, African Americans, Muslims, and just generally people who live in cities. He has produced a climate that many view as a direct predicate for the acts of violence and harassment we've seen, like the 22 dead in El Paso, as just one of many examples. He has also, and this is important, crucially followed through on policy. He tried and ultimately succeeded in instituting a travel ban on people from predominantly Muslim countries. He separated 2,000 children from their parents at the border. And after a judge told him not to, he separated 900 more. He's kept people, including children, in cages for weeks with no shower and no toothbrush. At least 24 immigrants have died in ICE custody during Trump's administration. And that number doesn't include 5 children who have died in the custody of other federal agencies. Now, here are 2 new cruelties. Yesterday, ICE agents raided 7 work sites in Mississippi, arresting about 680 people they say are undocumented immigrants. The raid, conducted just days after a gunman targeted Hispanic shoppers in El Paso Walmart, is the largest raid in any single state in American history. And those 680 arrests left hundreds of terrified American children alone to wonder if they would ever see their parents again. Meanwhile, the Trump administration deported a Detroit resident to Iraq, even though he had never been there before. Jimmy al-Daoud was an Iraqi national who was born in Greece. He came to the U.S. when he was 6 months old legally. He'd never lived in Iraq, didn't speak Arabic. He was an American in every conceivable way. He was a man who was a member of a persecuted Christian group in the Middle East. ICE says he had at least 20 convictions over 20 years, but friends say he also suffered from schizophrenia and other mental health issues.
I was sleeping in the street. I'm diabetic. I take insulin shots. I was throwing up, sleeping in the street, trying to find something to eat. You know, I got nothing over here. As you can see, I was kicked in the back a couple days ago, claiming to get off the guy's property. I was sleeping on the ground. He claimed it's his property. You know, I begged him. I said, please, sir, I've never seen this country. I don't understand language, you know.
And now that man that you just saw is dead because apparently he was unable to get insulin in Baghdad to treat his diabetes. So my question is this: how do any of those things help the people Trump said he would help? Who is made better by it? Those kids crying for their parents in Mississippi, the traumatized children, they're American citizens. The president is hurting those Americans. A dead man on the streets of Baghdad who is lonely and scared and sick. Whose life did that make better in America? Whose job did that bring back? Whose income rose because of that? Who no longer has to deal with the ravages of opioid addiction in their family because that man is dead on the streets of Baghdad? Because those kids are wailing because they don't know if they'll ever see their parents again? The answer is no one. And that's a fundamental con at the heart of Donald Trump. He says, I'm going to hurt these people and I'm going to help you. And he can deliver on the first part, but he's done just about nothing on the second. There are hundreds of people at a closed mine in Wyoming sitting around with no paycheck. We covered them. We're in the second week of the miners down in Harlan County not letting the coal trains through because their mine is shut down and their pensions were raided and they're owed back pay, they say. And the people in Lordstown, Ohio, who Trump told not to sell their homes, they had their factory shut down. And farmers across the country are struggling with unplanted fields, having to make up on Trump's welfare handouts. The economic growth that Trump is so happy to tout has disproportionately happened in precisely the same areas it was already happening before, in large metro areas, among people who had already participated from the boom. It has helped those who were already reaping the benefits. In fact, there is one group of people Trump did say he would go after where he has broken that promise, and that is the titans of corporate America and the globalist elites, because the banks are running wild and corporate America got $1 trillion in tax cut. So for the immigrants, it's punishment and misery and humiliation. And for the owners? Well, apparently, get this, the people who own the chicken plants in Mississippi that were raided, who had employed all these unauthorized immigrants, they apparently were not arrested. ICE won't comment. But when you think about it, how could they be arrested? Donald Trump has been doing the same thing at his own businesses for years, exploiting immigrant labor. In fact, the 680 people detained in Mississippi was the largest such raid since 389 people were arrested in 2008, and the owner of that plant was subsequently convicted of money laundering. But President Trump commuted his sentence in 2017. That's the deal. You in Lordstown, you're not going to get to keep your job, but instead you're going to get real acts of savage cruelty against some struggling families down in Mississippi while Trump stuffs fat cats full of cash and parties with them in the Hamptons. And meanwhile, all the structural inequalities in America, the great hollowing out of the industrial core, and rural America and the declining life expectancies for the first time since World War II, the 70,000 people we're losing every year to opioids, all that will go on. Because Trump and his party and his donors could not possibly care less about all that. But look over here, the people